Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about memes and the alternative right. And this is Christine who wrote her dissertation about memes and the alternative right, obviously. So can you tell me more about why did you do this and what motivated you to write about this and what is interesting about it?
Yeah, so I actually chose to write it after I did another assignment a year before about internet culture during the pandemic and the wellness industry on social media. And I got really caught up with how exciting that was and how deep that went. So I thought about looking into memes and how the extreme right in general are using memes as a way of doing propaganda and spreading hateful information on mainstream media. And yeah, that's basically the background for why I chose to write it.
So let's have a little introduction about memes. What is a meme? How did memes come about? Because I read in your dissertation that memes are actually more than 70 years old.
Yeah, so the term meme as we know it today is quite old already. The first meme as we know it today was actually during the Second World War. There was this worker he did some sort of cleaning, and every time he had been in a space, he would say Kilroy was here, his name was Kilroy, and he would put it on doors to know where he had already been. And soldiers started picking up on this, and you would see this little man painted on walls saying Kilroy was here, and today you can find memes about it on the internet. A regular meme as we know it today as an internet meme. You can find it on t-shirts, you can find it on cups on Etsy, you can find it basically everywhere. And that's kind of how memes have evolved.
So for this video you can put your headphones in and walk around and do something else. You can also watch the video and I will add pictures and references in as we speak. So you can both use it as a podcast and as something that you can watch. So, memes. How did modern memes develop?
So probably for the past 10-15 years we've started to see memes as we know them today. We probably all remember when we started to see a lot of cats on the internet as memes. And it used to just be all fun and games, and it was just, you used it as reactions to, and we do that as well today, we just use it as a reaction or a way of expressing ourselves. But it has evolved into being something the alt-right and the extreme right is also using as a propaganda tool.
Yeah, and the alt-right, that is the alternative right.
Yeah, it's a short for alternative right.
But how are they alternative?
So they are more extreme. It has more to do with the extremist side of the regular far right, and it's very grounded in the neoliberalism as well, and neo-Nazism. So that's why the far right as well doesn't necessarily feel like they're connected to the alt-right as well, because it's a newer and more extreme right.
I see, because I see that alt-right try to present themselves as less extreme and more hip and just a slightly conservative young crowd, but that is not true.
That's not that's not the idea you get if you actually look into who they are, who they support, a lot of their opinions in general.
Yeah, definitely. So talking about the alt-right, we have this the OG alt-right meme, Pepe the frog.
Yeah.
Insert Pepe here. But the drawing wasn't actually alt-right to begin with. It was made by what's called?
Yeah, it was a cartoon.
Yeah, it was made by an animator who just animates stuff, and he's like, I don't get why he should be right wing. Like he's a frog. He's like, how is a frog gonna be a neo-Nazi? So, and he's actually, I also read in your dissertation right now, he has copyright lawsuits for people misusing his frog.
Yeah. So it has been taken down a lot of places where it's been used in a extreme right-wing way. Yeah. But obviously the internet things, you know, travels fast. So
everybody owns it.
Yeah, and everybody owns it. So it's not easy to do that much. But yeah, he does have lawsuits out for a lot.
I just remember, I can imagine meeting someone, they ask like, oh, you're doing a lawsuit, what is it about? So I made this frog, and apparently people think it's right wing, so now I have lawsuits, and I drew this cartoon.
And it was just for fun.
Yeah, I don't know if I would believe someone who said that to me, so it's quite absurd. Do we have any idea why it was used as something that's
I think it was just poor coincidence. Someone just saw this frog, found it funny, made a meme, and then it just got into the hands of right-wing people, and then it just spread really fast. Yeah. So I think it was just a coincidence. I don't think it had that much to do with how or where it originated. Okay. And
it spreads on 4chan, as I understood it.
Yeah. A lot. Yeah. I think that's where you saw it the first time. It was on 4chan, and that's where it spread from afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. So, what does make these young people, like, what makes them go on for? It is young people, I presume.
It's generally, it's young men under 35 who are the main crowd. I think 70% of 4chan users. Yeah.
Okay. And you know, like, what makes them participate in this? What makes them, like, think, okay, now I'm gonna go to 4chan, and because 4chan, it's this website, this network. That is a free speech something, I guess.
And you can be anonymous as well.
Yeah.
Which is probably why you see a lot of people participating. It's because it is anonymous. You don't have to put anything at stake, your name, where you live, who you are, anything. You can express your opinions just as you like. There's no censorship. So you're basically free to say whatever you want. And there's like a political under subject inside 4chan. Which is where you see a lot of these memes, hateful memes coming up, and that's why you found Pepe the first time as well as a right-wing meme.
Okay, so like the people who go on 4chan, that's usually young men who are isolated?
Yeah, socially isolated. Some people call it like fringe personalities and like socially isolated personalities. So generally young men who doesn't feel like they can find a network somewhere else, probably people who are already a little bit right-leaning, they will find these types of networks where they feel some sort of fulfillment, and they can feel some sort of gratification around being a part of a group. And the thing about being anonymous means that they don't really have to put that much out there, and they can participate and feel a connection to these people in here. And a really interesting thing is showing that if you are new in 4chan and you are sharing some of these memes, the memes have more success in spreading if you're not already an established member, which makes it even easier to draw in these isolated people, because it doesn't take much for them to get this sort of success in these networks. So the way the system works makes it very easy for isolated people to get in, feel success, and very easily conform to the norm in these groups.
So does it have the same dynamic as a cult? Like when you're new, they're like super sweet to you, they welcome you in?
It could be. There are probably some of the same types of dynamics going on, definitely, yeah.
And do you know, because you also wrote that when it's someone who isn't high up in the hierarchy on 4chan, when they post something, like you just said, it gives more, the memes are more successful than when it's someone who's a regular user who's popular. Do we know why that is? Do we know why other users like new users more?
I think, so the interesting thing is probably that if you are like a regular user and like high up in the hierarchy, the things you spread faster, but you don't necessarily get the same popularity in the group as if you're a new member. And I think that kind of keeps the hierarchy up, because it still means that if you create something and you create it often and you participate often, your things will spread fast, so you will keep having this feeling of success within the group. But if you're new, it doesn't take a whole lot for you to actually feel like enclosed in this network.
Yeah. And it's also something I've noticed in other groups called participatory culture, where it is about the participation, that these people, they feel like they have a place where they can participate. As you wrote, the bar is set really low. It's like pretty much mediocre, and like you don't have to like sit and animate something for a long time or write something really, really long and smart. You can just like send like a comment or just send a meme, and then like that becomes popular.
So the thing with participatory culture is, and that's, I find it really interesting because I see all the positive sides of the participatory culture that we have today. Like you can find online groups where you feel welcome, or people who are like-minded, and it's a really easy way to create a positive network as well. But I don't think we've put enough attention to how harmful it can be as well, how easy it is to get into like extreme right-wing groups. And as we haven't paid much attention to it, I feel like we've allowed it to grow really quickly and a lot. And because we haven't paid that much attention, we now see more and more people, like, I haven't wrote about this in a dissertation because I simply didn't have enough space for it, but I did start writing about it. And a lot of the shootings we've seen from right-wing people in the US within the past couple of years, they've all almost been part of these extreme right-wing groups. Some of them have been part of 4chan as well. Some of them wrote about what they were going to do on 4chan before. So when not paying enough attention, we actually have people saying, I'm going to go out and shoot into a mosque or a church or a women's college or something, and they already state that the day or two before, and how they're going to do it, what they're going to do it with, and all of these things, and still it happens. So so we do have like a lot of problem with how participatory culture is seen as this great thing where we can all gather online and we can create networks and find like-minded people, but we've kind of ignored the negative sides of it as well. Yeah, of course, like it's nice if you post pictures about your cat, or if you are in a group that shares cute dog memes. Or like, what did you make for dinner last night? Or
But I also hear people say a lot like, it's internet, it's not real, you know. But when it radicalizes people, then it is real. Then it doesn't matter like where they're radicalized. Like you could radicalize me on the computer as well as you could radicalize me anywhere else, you know.
And that's one of the biggest problems with how we just view participatory culture as something fun and nice we do online, is the fact that we do see a lot of radicalization online, and especially in these groups that are already really well known, and still there's just, you know, there's not much reaction to it.
Okay. So recently I've read and seen a lot about the Manosphere, 4chan, and like the way of using these memes politically and right wing. Is that connected to the Manosphere?
So this is just a personal answer, not something that I've looked into, but I would say that yes, it is a part of it, and that is mainly just because if you see the type of people participating in these online cultures and social networks as 4chan, then it is men. It is primarily men.
And I also noticed the men who participate in this are also the men who have like the same Manosphere gurus. They're like, they do the meme, they do the 4chan stuff, but they also listen to the Manosphere gurus. They feel that they can identify with both groups.
Exactly, yeah.
And Christine, can you tell us more about the gratification theory?
Yes, I can. So the gratification theory is basically a way of measuring people's satisfaction within a group, and this is how it applies in 4chan as an example, meaning that when we see these people sharing things and quickly receiving a feeling of success and gratification, this means that they are they get more caught up quickly in
by fake internet points.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly.
No, I mean I get that as well, because if I made a cake that I'm proud of, it's not a political cake, it's just like a nice cake, and you post it and all your friends like it, and people who you don't know maybe like, oh my god, what's the recipe? Like you get a sort of gratification.
Exactly.
And it's the same with
memes. It's exactly the same. And memes is just a really easy way of doing it, and it's a thing that spreads fast, and you can just like it and comment, and it grows just really fast.
Yeah, I can imagine that, especially if you're socially isolated, you don't have that many friends, you're not happy being alone, you don't know how to deal with people. That's like a place where you're welcome, and just by posting a meme then...
Exactly, it's such a new feeling, and you did so little, you just created a meme and posted it, and you received all of these comments and likes, and it's so unlike you to have that feeling in your life, and it just connects you to a certain network, a certain group, as 4chan as example, really easily.
Okay.
And it's also it's a way, like the gratification theory is like a way of identifying like patterns within a specific demographic online as well. So this is basically also used to figure out like which types of people are using 4chan and why. And you can use it to compare, like when we see today, if you used to think of new Nazism, and the people who would normally support that in like older days, or maybe not even that elderly days, you would see like older white men, probably lower middle class. They often would have like a more violent background when it was like really extreme. And today we just see these young white like men
upper middle class, right? For some reason.
Yeah, exactly. They're much more middle class today, but they feel much more isolated. So it's like more isolated cases of young men from the middle class who seeks these communities. So there's been like a change in the type of people we connect with neo-Nazism today.
But not to be rude or anything, I'm just thinking, where does the frustration come from? Because it's not like they're underpaid and have to work like 60 hours and have to like break their back every second week, you know, where does...
Well, in the US they probably do,
okay.
Because, you know, lower pay, less security, even if you are middle class, you don't necessarily have a wealthy life in the same way as we do here.
But is the middle class even middle class anymore, you know? Like, is it... Maybe they have like, I don't know, the cultural, the way of speaking to each other, the way of connecting, the clothes they wear, the kind of style, the way they dress, you know, their hobbies, everything they do can still be upper middle class.
Yeah.
But it looks like that class is just like hemorrhaging money in a way, because they don't really earn that much anymore.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, I'm not higher middle class, but I just like remember 15 years ago I could just like walk in anywhere and get a well-paid job in a restaurant or a bar or anything. But like that's really hard now. So even to get like the lowest paying job is really hard.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's hard to get like a proper, I don't know, unskilled, which is like a stupid to say unskilled, because it's like you have to have a
education,
job, because like you have to be skilled to do anything, you know. But that's also really hard right now. So okay, I get that. I mean, they shouldn't do it, but like
and also again, like it's not everyone just because you're middle class or middle class. It's like, and I don't know if there's something that's harder for young men today, that creates like this slippery slope onto the extreme right. If you feel isolated, if men today generally feel more isolated in networks or find it harder to perform, or maybe it's because it is sometimes harder to find a job or to do everything you're supposed to do as a young person. It's difficult to find the right job. Everything's getting more expensive. All of those things, and maybe like it's just maybe people just feel like it's a little bit harder to exist in the world today, and that just turns them towards the far right, and then it's going just being far right or supporting Trump. It's not really, you know, going to the alternative right and the more extreme side of it.
It's not just like voting every couple of years and then forgetting everything about it, you know?
It's like it's organized and it's participation by your own free will a lot. It's not just like, as you said, voting once every 4th year and then that's it.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe there are fewer communities for men. Not that like it has to be exclusively for men, but just like communities where men can participate in a way. And I think that like that's true for any gender. But I think we work more. It looks like we work more and we live further apart and we have less time for our friends and we do go more on the internet.
Yeah.
So friendships you could cultivate before, friendships you could keep from primary school, some people end up losing them. Yeah. And it's not an excuse. I think it's not an excuse. I think I'm just trying to find like an explanation for why this happening.
Because there's definitely an explanation. The thing is just we haven't looked into these things enough yet to be able to profile these people correctly enough, and also to necessarily completely understand the background. It's like we can guess a lot and we can think maybe it's because we don't have enough communities for men and we don't focus on, maybe we haven't focused enough on like men's mental health in general, so like they don't necessarily have a place to express themselves and not in a healthy way at least, and the ways they choose to express themselves become more harmful maybe.
Definitely.
Where we as women, we're more used to just openly talk about our feelings or what's going on and stuff like that. And I think we need to create, which is a thing with the participatory culture, like we're supposed to be able to just create these really like healthy networks for people, and we should be able to do the same for men as well. There should be these like really good networks. Why can't men find like a group where they can post what they ate for dinner last night or post a nice picture of their dog? Like it's mainly, that's what I see at least, it's mainly women who does that. And I think it's a healthy way of just like having online networks. And I think men, they either like choose to not participate in it, doesn't feel welcome in it, but just doesn't have an alternative to that,
Also, when I think about like hobbies and like sometimes think, why can't they just like, I don't know, go golfing or like go, I don't know, like just play football or just like do any sport or just like do, you know, any hobby.
Yeah.
But the inflation is pretty big and the hobbies don't get cheaper, you know, and when you think about communities often require spending money, but online communities don't necessarily, you know. So that's also, I think that can have like an impact. Yeah. Okay, so going back to Pepe the Frog, you know what? I have to hear a story. Once I saw somebody printed out Pepe the Frog meme and hung it up somewhere. And it's like, I don't know, it's like an internet meme, but they printed it out and it's analog. I don't know, I was just like, this is a little confusing.
Yeah.
It's not how this is supposed to work. But going back to Pepe the Frog, he was used in, she, we don't know, they. So going back to Pepe the Frog, the meme was used in meme warfare that we wrote about. How does one do meme warfare with a frog to support Trump?
So, well, first of all, Trump chose to use the frog himself as well.
Oh, he liked the frog. Okay.
He liked the frog a lot. He even posted a photo on Twitter. It's in my dissertation, so you can post it here so people can see it. It's difficult to find because it was deleted, but a few websites still have it, so you can find it.
So what does repetitive exposure mean to people who use or like see these right-wing memes?
Yeah, so there's a theory called cultivation theory, and it kind of examines how repetitive media exposure can affect people's opinions towards society, and it is used as well to see how people with right-wing opinions are opinionated and their views on society. And we have research, it's quite new to research, showing that specifically white people are quite easy to change their opinion towards minority groups if the things they are exposed to is not too literal. So if you have like a meme that is super racist, people will immediately be like, oh, that's very racist, I'm not gonna look at that. But if it's fun or light and not too literal, like a fun meme that maybe have like, it still has like maybe some underlying negative stereotypes.
Fun racism, yay.
Yeah, fun racism, but like in a way where a lot of people will still maybe just laugh or not really think much about it. If you see that repetitively, white people are more likely to slowly change their opinion in a more negative way towards minority groups. And this could be like racial, it could be about gender, it doesn't really matter. But it's that repetitive information that's not too literal actually has an effect on how people view our society. And the interesting thing is that if it's too literal, it doesn't have the same effect. It kind of has to be almost like a hidden message or be really light in the way it's been done.
And talking about hidden message, memes are hidden messages. Because it's like there's this meme, about showing memes to your parents. Where like you show them the meme and they're like, who is this person? Is this your friend? How did this get on my phone? So also memes have like, they're very contextual. If you don't know the context, how the meme came about, if you don't know like the political situation, if you're not like, if you don't have online literacy, you often don't. It's just like a picture of a frog or whatever. But if you understand about like, if you know about 4chan, if you understand like how these memes work, then you can read something completely else into the picture than someone who doesn't really know anything about it. It's like hieroglyphs. Are they called hieroglyphs?
Yeah, basically, you kind of have to have some sort of understanding of like the intertextuality of what you see. You have to understand kind of what is this about, how is this meme used, how is this, as Pepe the Frog, how is this cartoon character used in general, because otherwise it's just a green frog, and it was originally just a green frog in a cartoon. It didn't have any meaning, and today it's on an official list of hate symbols.
By the Anti-Defamation League?
Yeah, exactly. And this is because of the way it was used. The frog was portrayed as some characters from our history during the Second World War, and some of the most racist and far-right groups ever portrayed in history. This frog was portrayed as them and spread around, which made the Anti-Defamation League end up putting it on a list of hate symbols.
And we can't say the names of those groups, but we can say one of them was like a German guy with a mustache.
And the other group was wearing big white hoodies. Yeah, so like it can go really fast, but again, if you just see, and again, some of these memes portrayed, like these people that we just mentioned, wouldn't necessarily be called automatically in some of the algorithms, because algorithms are both newer algorithms are trying to connect the image and text as well, because the problem earlier with the algorithms it's just been seeing the image, like the meme in itself, but if you had like text or anything else, that would actually, maybe the text would actually be the harmful part, and then it would just be like Pepe the Frog in the image. It wouldn't get caught by the algorithm because it doesn't connect the image and the text. Those algorithms are better today, but still some of these memes, even though maybe if you didn't know this German guy with the mustache, there would still be like other like semiotic signs in the meme. There could be like symbols or a little bit of text or something else that would kind of draw you in the right direction of what this meme is supposed to say and who is harmful towards.
There's this meme that is portrayed as, like, portrays Jewish people in a very negative light.
Very negative stereotype,
Yeah, very negative stereotype. And the algorithm has caught on to it.
Yeah.
So, but they did something.
Yeah, so it's actually, it's called The Happy Merchant, and it's very, like, a really ugly, stereotypical, like, drawn image of a Jew. And the algorithm does pick up on it now, so it's actually super difficult to find anywhere. You can find it like meme databases, but you don't see it spread around. Even if you search on it, like on Instagram or Twitter or anything, it doesn't come up with the image anymore. So a way for the alt-right to keep, it was also spread a lot on 4chan, which is where everything is basically spread from. A way for them to keep spreading it without having the algorithm catch on is to kind of deconstruct the image, meaning that it becomes less and less obvious what it is. I found deconstructions of it where it's basically just a few lines.
Yeah, it's just like a triangle.
It's basically just a triangle.
And then a line or something?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't look like anything. It's just random lines in a photo. But you can kind of see like different variations of it, going from what looks like an actual person to just being like hard lines showing this person to being less and less and less, until it would be completely impossible for anyone who's not on the inside to understand what this means. So if you did see this on Instagram or somewhere else, you wouldn't understand what it was. You might understand it if you read the hashtags instead. So this is a way to find these. It's figuring out what hashtags are being used, and then you can kind of like start going through all the memes you find, and then these will pop up. But if you don't know what it is, to you it will just be a square or a triangle or something like that. But everyone on the inside, meaning the alt-right in these online networks, will all understand what it is. So this is a way to actually keep spreading all of this hatred and harmfulness in a way where the algorithms doesn't necessarily pick up. And you can still use hashtags that are maybe a little harmful or stereotypical, but if you don't combine it with a photo that's harmful as well, it won't be picked up on. So even though we don't necessarily understand what it is when we see it, it's still out there, and you can still find hashtags that will show it.
And actually that's been done like verbally before with like words. So instead of like with like those people who are they're lighter than beige and they like being that very much, they also had like some sentences about like how they were better than everyone else. But then they reduced this to like something like 14 words or something. So then instead of just like saying that, they would just like write 14 or something like that. So it has been done within these groups with like language, but now it's also being done with like signs.
Yeah, actually there's a whole list on the Anti-Defamation League as well. So the same place where Pepe the Frog is now a hate symbol listed. You can actually go in their list as well of numbers, which is like 14 as well, and it just seems like random numbers. But again, if you hashtag those and look online, you're actually able to find like a lot of extreme right-wing propaganda online, and it's both memes and just photos and whatever. Because all of these extreme right-wing groups that exist, they all have like another way of saying who they are, which doesn't say their actual name, because they know that having their name written on an image or in a hashtag will get caught by the algorithms. So there's like, you can find like this whole list of like numbers and like initials and stuff that for random people doesn't mean anything, but they can still keep their own like network online in more mainstream media as well.
Okay, so going back to Pepe the Frog, how was he used in meme warfare? How was he used in the election? And how did he not become popular in France?
Yeah, so I was about to say the funny thing. I'm not sure it's a funny thing, but he was quite successful in the U.S. and at least the alt-right claimed a victory for meme warfare because Trump got elected and I was about to say take the blame. They don't take the blame, but they
took the honor.
Took the honor for his win, and so it wasn't that weird when you had an election the year after in 2017 in France, and you had the liberalist and you had the extreme right, Marine Le Pen, and that was just a year later. So it's not weird that we saw Pepe the Frog being used in that campaign as well. Just the way as you saw Trump being portrayed as Pepe the Frog, you also saw Le Pen portrayed as Pepe the Frog.
And that didn't go over well.
And it didn't go that well in general. It didn't seem like anyone was really surprised why it didn't go well. When we talk about memes, it's really important to understand that what's important about memes is the translation. If it doesn't translate well, it doesn't go viral. If it doesn't translate well, the message won't get out there. And in a situation like this, it's about getting the message out as far as possible because it's a political campaign and you want everyone to see this in the same way as you did in the US. The problem was that, first of all, people in France prefer when things are written in French. A lot of the memes you saw with Pepe the Frog was in English. I think, I'm not 100% sure on this number, but I think 1/3 of the Twitter accounts found who shared Pepe the Frog and the French campaign originated from the US, meaning that like a lot of people who actually tried to make an impact with Pepe the Frog during the French election didn't understand the French culture.
Yeah.
So people either just, and also just the general culture in France, the alt-right in France is very different and it's not as massive as it is in the US. Like, even though Marine Le Pen, she's very, she's quite big in France, but she was never big in the same way as Trump was in the US.
She's not that mainstream.
She's not that mainstream, and the alt-right isn't that mainstream. And the lack of understanding of the culture in France and how the right wing works in France and the language and culture in general just made it fall to the ground completely. Like it didn't work at all.
And I see that actually often with like Americans like commenting on European politics or politics anywhere else in the world. They just take American politics and put it over like as some sort of framework, and it doesn't work because like I mean other countries do exist. So and also the thing with like taking a French like I don't even want to call him a politician. I guess he's a politician. Taking a French politician and making him into a frog, it's like it wouldn't go that well in France because it's like a frog is an insulting term for a French person.
Exactly. So obviously Marine Le Pen, she hoped to become president. She didn't, but like not understanding that calling a French person a frog is a really negative term because people in France eat frogs. So being called a frog is like, oh, you're just one of those frog-eating people, which is kind of negative. So making the person that you're supporting into a frog obviously doesn't have the same positive effect as it is to make Trump into a frog, because frogs have nothing to do with American culture. So like there was just so many miscommunications and misunderstanding and lack of knowledge, and all of these things just made it impossible for Pepe the Frog to translate. And with translate, I don't necessarily mean the language, but just translate in the way it was used. Because you can't just take it and like shove it into a new culture and expect it to have exactly the same effect if you don't like change how it's used.
Yeah, and the French, as you also wrote, there's no bigger networks that will promote this kind of discourse.
You don't have these extreme right-wing news outlets in the same way as you do in the US, where you could find Pepe the Frog everywhere during the election. You didn't find that in France.
And are the French less online also? Do we know that?
I think so. Or at least like a bigger part of the population isn't as online as in
that's also
in
my
the US.
impression.
And there's just a lot of things that are so different, and also just what we call European culture in general, in the way our systems and networks and propaganda works. It's in a whole different way than in the US.
Yeah. I also think like we have like, I know this sounds weird, but we have less transport time, and like we have better infrastructure, so we have more time to meet up with friends in the real world. We don't need those networks as much, or fewer people need them as much, or fewer people are like put in a situation where that's like one of the few possibilities or the only possibilities of like hanging out with someone, and like, you know, having some sort of like social like when people hang out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's my impression.
Yeah.
Can you tell a bit more about copy fidelity and what makes the successful meme?
So, as I mentioned previously as well, for a meme to be successful, and by successful means being spread, liked, shared, translated, changed, meaning going viral in some sort, it needs to translate well. It needs to be easy to use and easy to understand and easy to share. And this could be like a meme where you could just download the meme and write something and basically everything will be funny. Or it's really easy for people who see the meme to understand and relate to it as well. So if it doesn't translate well in any way, it won't go viral, meaning the meme can't be successful because it can't find any like hosts in the same way a virus works.
And that's why it's called going viral.
Exactly.
It infects the host.
Exactly. And if it doesn't affect it, well, then the virus just die.
Yeah. And that's there's a lot of like biological virus like expressions when talking about memes.
Yeah.
The word meme comes from French, and when I first read it, I was like, why did I not see this before?
Yeah, it's exactly the same word. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell a little more about that?
Yeah. So the French word meme, which is spelled the same as meme, means the same and alike as well. And so that's what we see in memes today when we spread them.
It is the likelihood of something.
Exactly. And how things are alike and how it's the same and how we share the same thing over and over and over and over again.
And it was first used in biology?
Yeah, exactly. It was used to describe how a virus like works in the body. So it wasn't an internet term. It wasn't anything that has to do with what we see as internet memes today. It was like a biological term.
And how did it come to be a meme?
Like as we know it today. Well, it was picked up in the 70s, actually, I'm sure it was. And it was kind of described in a way that we see things replicating itself. And then when we started using memes as internet memes, a lot of scholars and writers and journalists and everything kind of quickly caught up on how it works in exactly the same way as a virus does in biology.
Interesting and cool. So for a meme to be successful, you write that it has to have a copy fidelity, how do you say this?
I'm not really sure how you actually pronounce it. Fecundity?
I guess. And longevity. So if it doesn't have copy fidelity, you can't copy it. Like if it's like a 4K 2-hour video, you can't just like post it as a comment.
Yeah.
You know, like download it, like it's not possible, you know?
Yeah. It has to be able to be spread quickly and easily.
Yeah.
And it has to stay alive.
And it has to like have the longevity, it has to mean the same or more or less, like it has to be understandable in a year from now on.
Exactly. And it also means that it can change, like you can change the text on it, you can change its understanding and the meaning of it, and by that you're keeping it alive. because you can always add something new to it.
Yeah. Let's say how you say that word.
Fecundity.
Fecundity.
Okay, and it is the ability to produce an abundance of offspring or new growth. And that I have seen. I've seen like the original meme, and then it develops over time.
Yeah.
Like if if someone's eating and I go over to them and I say bröda, would you know what that means?
No.
Ah, okay. It's a cat that says bröda and it wants some of the cereal.
Oh.
So it's just like, so that's
Fecundity.
That's fecundity.
Yeah.
Yeah. How you can like build on it and how it's like funny.
Yeah.
So I've thought about it. I think memes are sort of a modern folklore in a way.
Yeah. I think that's correct, and I've seen that being said as well, researching this topic in general. So I definitely think there is some truth to that, or at least you can compare the two.
And I would also like to talk a little about dog whistling.
Yeah.
Which is actually, you already talked about it. We just didn't give it a name.
Yeah.
But the dog whistling is how like these I don't know. Your dissertation calls it counterculture. Is it a sort of counterculture, or someone calls it a counterculture?
Yeah. So basically, it has to do with how, so the dog whistling theory works the same way as a dog whistle. Like you blow the whistle and not everyone hears it. So when I talked about how some memes are being deconstructed in a sense that most people don't understand it anymore, that's a way of using the dog whistling theory to understand how these memes have become so deconstructed that you can't see what it is. It's just random lines, but there's still a specific group of people who will understand them in the same way as a dog will hear the dog whistle, but humans won't. So it's a way for specific communities to kind of have their own language. They are the only ones who understand.
Yeah, definitely. And once, I saw a person with a profile photo of Pepe the frog, but from what the person wrote and like their posts, it didn't look like a right-wing person. So I think just like, I also feel like the meaning of Pepe the frog is slightly also changing, or maybe
it's just getting old. Like
it's
it's
just
not
getting
used
old.
in the same way
it's
anymore.
not like it doesn't hit the same way.
Yeah.
He doesn't hit the same way as you used to.
I would automatically always, if I see a photo of Pepe the frog, I would think Trump, I would think the US, I would think the extreme right wing.
Yeah.
But if I remember showing a photo, I think it was to one of my parents, and they're like, I've never seen this before.
Of the frog?
Of the frog.
And I
so
think
it's like it's a generational thing as well.
Yeah.
Like not everyone will understand it, and you have to have some sort of prior knowledge just to even understand the most regular Pepe the frog memes.
Exactly. And I think what I've noticed is like much older, and actually now we're getting so old, younger people don't really understand Pepe the frog either. For them it's just like a meme frog, but they don't really know what it means other than that he's silly.
Yeah. Because now it's just it's kind of become like just a fun meme. And it's less serious, but also again it might be because we have more algorithms today who will automatically remove it if it's not just fun.
Yeah.
So if you see it, you can almost be sure that it's not directly harmful.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed it like a change in the use.
Yeah.
That like it's become more neutral now when I see it.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a frog, or just like, I don't know, something that's silly, and like but I think if you know about like the context and how it's been used before, you wouldn't post it these days. So,
yeah. But also, even if you post a quite neutral image of Pepe the frog,
I still read it as right wing though.
I would always read it as right wing, but before making up my mind whether or not it should be right wing or it would be right wing, I would always read the comments, 2 the hashtags, because again, as I mentioned before, a way to avoid being caught in like mainstream media censorship, it is to like post something as a meme that's much more neutral,
Mm.
and then in other ways show that it belongs to the right wing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So when you talk about participatory culture, how was it coined? Like, is it always bad?
So participatory culture in general is quite a positive term, and it originates as being a positive term for people to find online communities and the positive things we can do as online communities, like participate in campaigns for like good things and like giving websites and Facebook profiles likes if they support a good cause and all of these things. But what we rarely talk about are the negative side effects as well. And I would actually like to just list like 5 criteria. So when participatory culture as a term was created, there was set like a set criteria for what it needs to fulfill to become like actual participatory culture and like networking that works as participatory culture. And the first is relatively low barriers to artistic expression and civic engagement, meaning that it needs to be really easy to participate. It doesn't.
You can just post it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to require a lot. 2, strong support for creating and sharing creations with others. So again, you need to be able to create and share things with other people in the network, and it needs to be easier and accessible.
And that's nice for children. Like if they want to do a little TikTok dance, like everybody can join. You don't have to be like 15. Like you don't have to have 15 years of like dancing experience. You know, you can just like make a fun little video and send it back and forth with your friends.
Exactly. Criteria 3: some type of informal mentorship, whereby what is known by the most experienced is passed along to novices. So this could be like admins in a group or like a list of rules in a Facebook group, all of these things. So if you're new to it, you will quite easily find out, what am I supposed to do, what am I not supposed to do, there's a set list of rules, there's someone I can ask, like, how do I do this, and someone can tell you what to do. 4, members who believe that their contributions matter, and 5, members who feel some degree of social connection with one another. At the last, they care what other people think about what they created. And this is this like feeling of connecting with other people. Like if I post a photo of my dog and people are like, this is the cutest dog I ever seen, this is my dog, and then you suddenly feel connected to people you don't actually know, I've never met. And all of these things can be super positive, and obviously they are in a lot of ways. But what we don't really talk that much about is how the exact same criteria applies when you talk about like alt-right networks online or other like medias where the extreme right connects. So first of all, relatively low barriers to artistic expression. You just post a meme and it doesn't take long for it to be successful, so that's like easy. Second, strong support for creating and sharing. If you're new to 4chan, as we talked about earlier, you actually have a higher chance of being successful in your meme creating alone by being new to the group.
A higher 4 chance, maybe even. Sorry, I couldn't stop myself.
That's a nice pun. So number 3 doesn't necessarily apply much with the informal mentorship, but 4, members who believe that their contribution matters. Obviously, if you feel like it matters or makes a difference, or you feel a connection to people, then you'll keep doing it. And in the same way as number 5, you kind of feel this connection to other people who have like-minded views and opinions about society or politics or women or non-white people or whatever you talk about in these right-wing groups. And this actually leads me to, I only chose to use one example in my dissertation to show how extreme the negative side effects of online participatory culture can actually be. So I chose to talk about Breivik, which is 11 years, just a few days ago. It was the shooting at Utøya in Norway, where an extreme right-wing person went to a left-wing camp on a small little island, and he went and shot 77 people.
A left-wing camp for youth?
Yeah, for youth, it was young people, young left-wing people who, it was a youth camp. And he went there and he shot and killed 77 people. That's 11 years ago today. Prior to that, he had been very active in numerous different online communities for the extreme right wing, and it was documented that he had been more and more radicalized throughout this period. So he probably started as just being regular right wing, going into the extreme part of it, meaning that probably if he hadn't been in these groups, he might not have gone and shot these people. He might still have had like negative stereotypes, and he might still have had right-wing views, but there's a big difference in being a regular right-wing, voting right-wing, and shooting people with the opposite opinion of you. And that's just one example of how the radicalization we see in these groups have a real effect on people's lives. It's not just something they do for fun. A meme is not necessarily just a fun thing we share. These networks are not just a random place where people can, outspeak their opinions. It can actually really affect people's views and actions. So
if he didn't participate in those online forums, he might have 77 people would have been alive today.
Maybe could have
wouldn't
been.
have done that at all. You know?
Exactly. And there are just numerous examples of the same things happening, and this could be last year, it could be 10 years ago. It keeps happening, and we keep seeing the same pattern of people participating in these online right-wing communities, and often even announcing what they're gonna do.
There's been all around the world. There's been several of those announcements. I don't know. I can just imagine it with other crime, someone announcing, "Hey, I'm gonna rob this and this bank tomorrow," and then nobody does anything.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's kind of just a way to say that even though it's not because we have to read all sorts of negative things into memes every time we see them, or look through the hashtags every time we find something funny on Instagram, but just kind of be aware that there's a lot of negativity and a lot of harmfulness out there, and quite often it's really good at being hidden, and these things does affect people.
And what I also notice about them, there's a lot of ridicule in it, and I do see that as an extreme right thing. The ridicule is not just joking about something, it's disregard for humanity, it's disregard for someone's humanity and someone's existence.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, I think we're done now, so thank you for coming today. Thank you for talking about your dissertation.
Thank you for having me.
I'm much smarter now than I was yesterday. So if people want to find you and follow you, you're also a photographer. You study visual culture, which is why you wrote this. I forgot to mention that. Where can they find you and follow you?
You can find me on Instagram, which is where I'm most active. I don't know if I should state my Instagram name.
Yeah, you should say it.
Yeah, so I'll spell it because it's, otherwise no one will actually find it.
You can spell it.
So it's Vassaux Noe, and the spelling is Vassauxnoe. So please go find me and follow me. I'll probably talk a lot more about memes.
And I'll write about it I'll write your username in the description.
Well.
So you're mostly on Instagram, right? You're not on Twitter or something else?
I do use Twitter as well. It's just Christine Noe.
Yeah. Not a Christine, yes. I have to say. And my jokes
very
aren't
negative.
the best ones,
Well, I've heard it before.
You have? Okay. Can people read the paper anywhere, or?
It's not published anywhere, but if someone has specific interest in it, I obviously have.
You obviously have.
I obviously have it myself, so. Okay. Or if anyone just have any questions or any deeper interest, or would like to read something about digital culture and memes, feel free to ask me.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching and listening or whatever.
Bye.